I was a student. I was a student at Hebrew University in Jerusalem. I, like many students, felt like I wanted to belong to something in the university, and I joined the fellowship of Stand With Us. Throughout the years, Stand With Us asked many of its alumni to volunteer to speak on campuses around the world. One year, I was sent to South Africa. I was sent to South Africa to speak on a university campus during an event that we're all very familiar with, an event that they call Israel Apartheid Week. My background is an analyst. My profession is Middle East conflicts. There's not much that you could ask me that I couldn't answer. I felt very confident going down to lead this team of volunteers to represent Israel and represent pro-Israel entities around the world in this event. But when I got there, I had a very rude awakening. I could have been the smartest person in the world and had every answer in the book, but that wasn't going to help me. That week, I experienced what the BDS is really about. Something that, at that time, a few years ago, not many people realized, not many people experienced. And it shocked me. I was appalled by the behavior of South Africans, how they treated us, that security needed to escort us off of campus, that I got off that campus practically injured. I was shocked that it was allowed to happen. As an Israeli intelligence analyst, the first thing that I thought of doing was figuring out what went wrong. How is it possible that the generation that's the generation of promising never again was witnessing it firsthand? And when I started digging down into what actually happened, what are we dealing with? Because as an intelligence analyst, that's my question. What are we dealing with? I can't start to approach to solve a problem if I don't know what it is. And that's what I actually want to talk about a little bit today, is learning what we're dealing with was the eye-opener that needed to happen for Link to come into being. And that's why I actually created the company. And so before I tell you what Link has discovered we're actually dealing with, I want to ask you all a question. How many of you have read the book BDS by Omar Barghouti? Can you raise your hand? 4. How many people are in this room? This is our first problem. We couldn't possibly approach dealing with the BDS if we haven't taken the time to fully understand what we're dealing with. We've asked ourselves, is this a political issue? Is this an academic issue? Is this an economic issue? Is it a religious issue? Most of you have come to the conclusion that it's an intellectual conflict with the BDS. My experience in Link is that that's not true. This conflict is 100% an emotional conflict. You've heard some speakers say it today, and I'm going to emphasize it. The BDS has played on the emotions of its supporters, its biggest supporters. They've manipulated history and tragedy and feelings. If I put it in an example for you, all of you students in the room, I'm going to ask you one more question. How many of you have tried to go on campus and talk reasonably with facts to someone and gotten nowhere? That's a few more hands. 2 hands up here. It's countless. We can talk till we're blue in the face, guys. It doesn't help because this isn't an intellectual problem. It's emotional. If you have a friend that's in love with someone and he's doing something stupid, you're not going to get through to him because the emotion is stronger than the intellectual being of the person. So the first thing I needed to realize was that the approach that we were going to take was not going to be to shove facts down these people's throats. That was not going to get us anywhere. The first thing that we needed to do after we figured out the what was now how. Takes me to number 2. How? How are we going to deal with this issue? And that how is, first of all, take the emotions out of the game. BDS activists are not any more smarter than we are or anyone else. But what they have done is played on the emotions of other people that we can show that to people. And that doesn't even have to do with the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. It's far away from it. When we started doing that, we started getting somewhere. Because then the rest of the how was very easy, and those are things that you've heard today. Do you do social media? Do you do media? Do you do public campaigns, private campaigns, lobbying? Do you create business ventures? Link decided to hit the BDS with everything we had. First, let's test everything, and then let's see what actually works. My last point is after we figured out the how, the who, And this is just as important as the first two. Who is the correct person to be doing whichever strategy you've laid out to do? Is it the people in this room? We all have a place in this fight. But it's bigger than that. You guys, it doesn't take a genius to tell you, if the analogy that they're using is the apartheid analogy, there's not one person in this room right now that can actually deal with that issue. Because I've been searching all day asking if there's a South African in this conference. Now I'm gonna ask my last question. If you do read the BDS book, I want you to read just the introduction. Because the one country that's mentioned more times, 3 times more than any other in the introduction of that book, is South Africa. Not Palestine, not Israel, but South Africa. And when we start understanding what it's actually about and what they're actually playing on, that's when we can start actually dealing with the real issues. I'll continue later.
Thank you. So we completed the introductory part of this panel with some homework to do. But I would like really to move now to the Q&A session. I'll ask a few questions, all the panelists, and then we'll open it to the floor. Most of your experience in life is really unparalleled. Your voice orally heard, and one that can only emerge from someone that knows Hamas intimately. I think everybody would like to hear how much pressure is placed on youth in Palestinian society to join a political movement. And what happens when someone like yourself chooses to distance himself?
You know, going against the flow is not an easy thing. And this is not only a challenge for a Palestinian who was conditioned in a Palestinian society. It's up to the individual and their pursuit towards their freedom. Most of us like to stay in our comfort zone and to have a sense of security. And this is what the society gives us. In return, we give up our freedom and our sight of who we are. And we become slaves to a certain society. This is what my society wanted me to be. Of course, when you go against the flow, you become immediately a traitor, which is something I accept. There are lots of things to say, and I don't want to take more time because, honestly, I think the other speakers are more experienced in this matter, and I would like to give them the opportunity to speak. They have much stronger voice than mine. But the way I see the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, and please not to make now the Palestinian-Israeli conflict to reduce it to a BDS conflict, to intellectual conflict, because it's not. The way I see it, and I'm responsible for my words, that it's a conflict between 2 states of consciousness. The first one is in the 6th and the 7th century. The other one is much more advanced and much more evolved. Israel represents the value system of the Western world, of democracy, of the collective consciousness, of the domain where all the blueprints of the greatest philosophers, scientists, authors, writers left that heritage. And unfortunately, the other side is representing shame, pride, guilt, fear, the low self that is not capable of evolving, playing the victim mentality and playing the victim card day and night, not taking responsibility. It takes courage to be responsible. I was not exposed that I worked for the Israeli intelligence. I worked undercover for 10 years. I maintained my cover. Nobody knew about my existence. Actually, within the Israeli intelligence, only a handful of people knew about me. And I decided to write the book knowing what will happen. What happened, happened. We should not be afraid of the society and its collective mind. Individuals like my brother here, he spoke the truth. He knows the truth. And actually, I am really proud of him. And he can be probably a true representative of the Palestinian people because I'm not accepted. But he can be. What we need to understand the dimensions of this conflict. BDS is only a one front. And it's targeting not only Israelis, not only democracies, it's targeting humanity. It's a force of darkness because it's based on lies and deception. We need to be aware of that. Thank you so much. And I give the mic to my brothers to continue. Thank you very much.
Question. I really have a follow-up question. Your views are very different from the mainstream views in the Palestinian Authority, and you're working closely in the area. Are you afraid?
You know, I used to ask or care about my... It's open? Yeah. I used to ask people who are care about my safety if they are running an insurance company. Yeah. I must have to say that since 12 years ago, I moved from East Jerusalem to Jericho, and I am feeling really very much more safer in Jericho rather than in Chicago. I remember in February, just 3 months ago, I appeared at Chicago University, and people just stood up to kill me, to threaten me. And then the police arrived over there, and then the police succeed to smuggle me from one of the behind doors of the chamber over there. I think, first of all, I'm a person who spent around 26 years from my life defending the rights of the Palestinians. I started my human rights career under the Israelis by my working at B'Tselem in that time. And after the Oslo Agreement, I decided to resign from B'Tselem and to create the Palestinian Human Rights Monitoring Group in terms to deal with the Palestinian Authority human rights violations. As you might know, to create human rights under the Arab regime, it looks like to commit a suicide. No more and no less. But I am a person who believes in that, and I think that I am really representing the majority of the Palestinians who are afraid to speak out or even to express their own feelings towards their own situation. I must have to say that each word I said it in English here, I almost said it in thousands of times in Arabic. I used to participate in a weekly, lively program on the Israeli TV Channel 1 in Arabic called Dialogue every Thursday, a lively program for half an hour, and each word I said it here, I repeated there in Arabic for thousands of times. So right now I am feeling really very safe at least in Jericho and in the West Bank. Thank you.
We have one intervention from the floor before I'll call people to ask some questions. It's from Gidi Greenstein, the chairman and the founder of Reut, and one of the best Jewish professionals in the world. Gidi, please.
Thank you, Robert. And it's a great pleasure to be here. Our team and I believe, pioneered the understanding of this BDS challenge back in 2006, a decade ago, the assault on the political, economic, and security, probably most important, and security model of Israel as a strategic threat with potentially existential implications, with very significant successes so far, primarily on an issue we have not discussed today, which is the legitimizing of massive assault on Israeli civilian population over the last decade that we've seen over and over in the last conflicts. So from the perspective of time, I want to speak of the one major transformation of this challenge. Between 2006 and 2010, this was in a blind spot. When we presented about this challenge to the Israeli government, people said to us, okay, we got you, non-profits attacking the political model of Israel, where are they hiding their guns? That was the question, because they thought in a mindset of terrorism. Today, we know that this is, so the whole challenge was an unknown unknown, which moved to becoming a known unknown. And from this position of a known unknown, that we actually understand what we're beginning to face, I believe there are two questions we have to ask, and maybe it's a little bit late in the day to ask them. Question number one, what is victory? What does success look like? And question number two, how do we get there? And this is a question then that leads to structure. What is the structure that will lead us there? So if you look at the defense establishment, there is an intelligence branch that collects and analyzes information. There is a strategic planning branch, and there is an operation branch. Now, this is a global Jewish challenge, so it's very different. But where do we have these intelligence capabilities? Where do we have the planning capabilities? And where are we coordinating some sort of execution and action on the ground? And I want to say this because the people here in this room represent one of the most important features of this challenge. Most of the successes we have seen over the last decade came from local people taking local action, using local relationships. It's a highly decentralized challenge. So empowering each and every one of you and your communities and your organizations is central. And with this, I'd like to say a few words, Robert, with your permission, about the World Jewish Congress. I think that this is, you as the World Jewish Congress have a very unique role to play here. First, we do need a global outlook. Alan Johnson related to it, other speakers related to it. This is a global outlook that understands this challenge globally and how ideas travel from South Africa to Europe, London to Cape Town, into America, through the Bay Area, and so on. This is a global outlook that will highlight what Emily mentioned, which is the Jewish community in South Africa that we believe is in the most difficult position in the world today, are the Jews of South Africa. And they need all of our support, whatever we can give them. And the third thing is, you as the World Jewish Congress have a depth of history, legacy of success, and the ability to look deep into the future. So I think it's organizations like yourselves and very few other organizations in the Jewish world that can really play a pivotal role in moving this conversation forward, because now we know the challenge that we face, but we need to achieve victory. And we need to understand what victory is, and we need to have a better sense on how we get it. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Gidi. Thank you, Gidi. I don't see your wife here, Betty, but Betty, you better don't wait for him for dinner on Friday, because he has a meeting with me at 4 o'clock. So I see it's going to be a long conversation. Please, we open the floor for a few questions. And the first questions will go to Mossab and to Bassem. Yeah, there is staff here that has the mics. I ask everybody not to make statements, but short questions, short answer. We're already an hour and a half into this session. Ifat? Yeah, please. Just present yourself quickly and the question.
My name is Oleg. I'm a PhD student. It's on? Okay. I'm a PhD student at UCLA. My name is Oleg. First, I wanted to thank you for your eloquent statements and for your courage in this struggle, in this conflict. And my question to you is, what would you tell BDS activists? What is your advice to them in terms of what they could do to help build a peaceful, tolerant, and thriving Palestinian society.
Any idea what to tell?
Any ideas?
Please, go ahead.
Yeah.
You already appointed. You know.
I think that the major important thing here is, first of all, we know very well that the BDS will never, ever be a peace builder. Never, ever. So we shouldn't have to ask them or to negotiate with these people how they are going to bring peace between the Palestinians and the Israelis. I think if I will meet with them, the first question I will ask them is for transparency. I want to know exactly what is the budget of the BDS and how much money the BDS is spending a year, on what they are spending is such kind of money. And in my opinion, the BDS, by the way, is trying a little bit to shift the whole issue of the BDS from the political matter to the ideological matter. Why they want to shift it to the ideological matter? Because if the whole issue of the BDS will become an ideological matter, then these people will earn much more money, because the Muslims right now getting much more money or having much more money than any other non-Muslim. And the BDS trying much more to work closer and closer with the Muslims country, like Iran as an example, like Turkey as an example, like the Islamic Brotherhood movement as an example. And I think that the first question should have to be to the BDS, transparency. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, Mike, David. I know that you called David here.
My name is David Schulman. There we are. Good. My name is David Schulman. I'm a member of a think tank in Washington, D.C. Bassem, it's good to see you again. And thank you very much for speaking to us. I want to know, where is the, is there a Palestinian leadership on this issue? Who's speaking for the Palestinians, either as an individual or as a group, or is there something that we can do to nurture a new generation of leaders that can reach across the aisle?
Thank you, David. Unfortunately, as we discussed it yesterday night, there is a lack of leadership among the Palestinians. If you will ask me, who is the alternative to Abbas, I will tell you Abbas. And this is, I think, one of the major problems that the Palestinians almost is stuck under. Sometimes when I am talking about Palestinians, especially in the refugee camps like Balata, Jalazon, Am'ari, Nur Shams, and we are trying to guess who might be a good coming Palestinian leader to the Palestinian people. Sometimes I am trying, as an example, to mention Muhammad Dahlan, which is Muhammad Dahlan right now is the major competent of Abbas. The major competent of Abbas. I believe if any elections will take place tomorrow for the Palestinian presidency, Muhammad Dahlan will arrive to Ramallah and will nominate and will run for such kind of elections, because Muhammad Dahlan looks like a very strong person right now, not only in the West Bank, but also in the Gaza Strip. And I think that Abbas is so aware right now from the supporters of Dahlan who are living in the West Bank. So when sometimes I'm mentioning the name of Dahlan, then the majority of the Palestinians looking to me by saying, listen, but Dahlan also corrupt person. I said, you know, I prefer a young corrupt rather than an old corrupt. Unfortunately, this is the only choice that we have. We don't have clean people. We have only young corrupt and old corrupt. I believe that the young corrupt probably will be much more active rather than the old one.
I see so many hands, so I'm canceling all my questions that I still wanted to ask. We'll open the floor for 2, 3 more questions. Just once again, please make it a question, not a statement, and make it short. And also the speakers, please short answers. And I would like Daniel to come back to join the podium. Yes, please, staff. Yes, please, just present yourself.
Hello. There we go. Hi, my name is Adela Kochav. I'm the Vice President of Realize Israel at NYU. Faculty is key to both sides of the BDS movement, but faculty and professors are hesitant to come out against BDS and make some sort of political statement as it affects their academic standing within their department. What are your thoughts, and what do you think that we can handle? My question is directed to Mr. Johnson.
Please be short.
Thanks. I was in Indiana a few weeks ago for a conference about global anti-Semitism. Alvin Rosenfeld organizes that conference. There was a whole cluster of American academics there who are organizing in practical ways on campus. If you get in touch with Ken Waltzer, who's setting up a new group of American academics, they're going to allow capacity build for them. They're going to give them resources. They're going to be in touch with student groups too. And Ken Marcus, also Ken Marcus at UC, is also organizing in interesting ways. So there are American academics. They are doing practical work, and they'd love it for you to be in touch with them and take it from there. So I think that's the best answer.
I just would like to follow up on this question and ask each one of the panelists to answer, but each one of you for less than 1 minute. What do you think the average citizen and student can do to promote dialogue and put a stop to the hatred so often injected into debate on Israel and the Palestinians? But just each one of you take 1 minute. Daniel, let's start with you.
Okay, what I'd suggest you do, you remember that video, the SodaStream Island of Peace? You can find it on YouTube. 35 million people saw it in the last 3 months. The Israeli government is using it on Facebook pages all over the world, including in Jordan. Create your own little scene. Talking about faculty, if you have a faculty member called David Rubenstein, go to him, find a faculty member called Mahmoud something, let them sit together. Let David introduce Mahmoud, and Mahmoud introduce David, and at the end they say, and we are friends. Put that online. You can put it on a Facebook page called Peace Intifada, which was founded by the children of the employees of SodaStream. The children of those people you saw in the video got together, Palestinians and Israeli kids. So go to that Facebook page, join it, Peace Intifada. Put your little clip. If we get enough good clips, I'll make sure the world sees it.
Thank you. Emily. Now each one of them will answer this question, then we'll take one more question. Please.
My advice would be, and what we've seen work, is take back the power. A lot of people are afraid, like you just mentioned, to maybe make a statement or say something. And I'm not going to lie, the first couple months, even maybe the first year, is very difficult. You can be criticized, you can be outcasted. But in the end of the day, a leader with no followers has no power. And if you can take their followers away from them by simply empowering them to see for themselves and make their own decisions, and take that emotional side out of it, you're taking away all of their ammunition, and by default, you win.
Please.
3 ideas, try to get them in 1 minute. We used to work with a man called Tal Becker, who many people will know, I think, is a brilliant advocate for Israel. He was a visiting research fellow at BICOM. He told us this about style. He said to us, it's better to be reasonable than to be right. People are judging Israel through you when you're in a debate, and you don't have to play whack-a-mole and knock every single fact and every single argument down until you look slightly crazy. Conduct yourself in a way where you seem reasonable, even if you can't answer every argument. He also said to us, be a character witness for Israel rather than a prosecuting attorney, which again, I think is something about the kind of style that Daniel talked about. Second argument, have some facts. I call them thought bombs that I leave with people. If you can say to an audience something like, do you know how many students at the Technion are Israeli Arab students? And then tell them it's around 20%. And then ask them to think about that fact in relationship to the apartheid charge. Do they know that infant mortality rates amongst Jews and Arabs in Israel, there is unevenness, there is a gap, But then if you tell them, do you know the infant mortality rates of Israeli Arabs are so much better than Europe, than America, than China, than the Arab world as a whole? Do they know about the 5-year development plan that the government's just passed that's historic in its ability to close the gaps between Jews and Arabs in Israel? Last point would be this. The single biggest argument I think that works for people on campus that I've used again and again is this one. You say to people, look, you think that Israel has peace in the palm of its hand, and for some inexplicable reason, it just won't open its fingers and give it up. That's not true. But you think, therefore, your job is to prise Israel's fingers off peace one at a time through outside pressure, sanctions, boycotts, BDS, and so on. Tell them why that's wrong. Tell them from the Peel Commission in the 30s to the UN in the 40s to the 67 offer, to Camp David, to Annapolis, to the Kerry talks, Israel has always been willing to divide the land. The Palestinian rejectionism, Palestinian terrorism, Palestinian incitement must be brought back into the conversation. I had an argument recently with Mehdi Hassan on Al Jazeera on Head to Head, where I made exactly that set of points. And I know that it made a big impact on the audience in the room at the Oxford Union and beyond, hopefully, with the TV. So we have to reframe the discussion from this constant blaming of Israel for the absence of peace and make it a much more interesting, complex discussion.
I will send all of these students in November, the coming November, to elect for Donald Trump. You know why? Because Donald Trump said once that he is the only one who can solve the Israeli-Palestinian conflict as a businessman, not as a politician. I think that we need a businessman here to be the front for the BDS. Yeah.
I knew we will come to Donald Trump at the end. Everybody has a boss, and I have a boss as well, and the boss is sitting there, and the time is short. While you had a lunch, Danny Danon called a meeting of the main organizations that put together this conference, and his message was that it's the beginning of the dialogue. It's not the end of it. It's not the middle of it. It's not. We're just starting this process. And I'm sure that the speakers on this panel, to whom I want really to thank very much, and many others during the day, and many others during the day will be available for everybody sitting in this room through the delegation to the Israeli delegation to the United Nations and through the World Jewish Congress to receive information, to receive guidance, to receive briefing, and to receive whatever is needed. On behalf of our President, Ronald Lauder, I would like really to thank Ambassador Danny Danon and his team. I think they did a fantastic job. This conference, please be seated for another 2 minutes. I know that young people don't have time, but take some time. On behalf of so this conference is unique in that it is not just a debate about the boycott movement itself. It is a chance for us all to brainstorm and come together to form a strategy to fight the delegitimization of Israel. The World Jewish Congress is committed to fighting anti-Semitism wherever and however it raises its head. And delegitimizing Israel is anti-Semitism. It's plain and simple. Undermining Israel as a state undermines the Jewish people. The World Jewish Congress recently established a counter-delegitimization department to serve as a resource for you, the next generation students sitting in this room, and Ronald Lauder gave you earlier today the website and the email address. We want to help you and give you the necessary tools to fight anti-Israel and anti-Jewish rhetoric, both on and off campuses. That is the purpose of this conference as well. The BDS and delegitimization movements bank on populist opinion, gaining steam through the cheers of crowds, not rationalism. We must fight back at them with the facts, with the truth of Israel's accomplishments, and with the reality that any delegitimization of Israel undermines the chances for an Israeli-Palestinian peace. We must fight back at them with the truth of the right of the State of Israel to exist. And not just the right to exist, but to be the homeland of the Jewish people. The right to be democratic and thriving place for all of its citizens and residents, Jews, Christians, Muslims, and all other faiths alike. The state of Israel today is fighting two fronts, one in the field of security and the other in the field of diplomacy. In Israel today, hundreds of thousands of young people your age, people sitting in this room, have enlisted in the army for the protection of the state and for the protection of the Jewish people as a whole. These young people come to the army from every socioeconomic, ethnic, cultural, and political affiliation possible, from all walks of life. They join the army regardless of what they feel about the government policies and regardless of their political views. In every unit, there are dozens of personal political opinions. But that does not stop these soldiers from serving in the same army IDF. No, it is what brings them together. They may see the world differently, but they all agree on one thing. Their duty as Israelis is to serve their country, because theirs is a just fight for a just cause. And on the second front, the front of diplomacy, this is where you, the next generation of Jewish and diplomatic leaders living in diaspora, come in, because this is your duty. This front is not less important. Here, in this room too, you may have different political views, but the delegitimization of Israel is not a matter of politics. It is a question of the Jewish homeland. The Jewish people must remain united, and we must remain strong. We cannot stand by, and you must not stand by, as the international community turns against Israel and attacks Jews by passing resolutions that shock us to our core. We cannot stand by, and you must not stand by, as the world shouts slogans against Israel, defaces Israel, and discriminates against the Jewish people in words and actions that are nothing short of anti-Semitism. This is your struggle to face. This is your battle to fight. Nobody will do it for you. The World Jewish Congress and other organizations here with us today will support you at every step. But you, the next generation of leaders, must step up to the challenge. You must be active. You must be passionate and motivated. You must stand up for at your campuses, at your supermarkets. You must petition. You must write op-eds. You must write articles. You must talk to your peers. You must let your voices to be heard. There is no quick fix for this new form of anti-Semitism. Our struggle will be difficult, and it will be long. Let's plan our strategy. Let's remain dedicated, and let's fight it till the end. We are here to protect our right for national determination. We are here to say the Jewish people will not be defeated. We will remain strong, we will remain democratic, and will remain determined for our right for statehood alongside all other nations in the world. Just as the Israeli army is strong, so are you. And just as the Israeli army will win, so will we. It was said here many times during this day, and thank you so much for joining us here today. You are our future, and together we will prevail. Thank you very much.